So I think it's important to note when we transition from our pressing front court defense into our zone defense, there is a window of time where you are vulnerable, especially if there isn't great urgency in how we get back into our zones. Obviously, some of the standards of a zone defense, the objective of a zone defense is to prevent an exclusion or a clean ball going to the center. Like I said, the transition from a press to zone must be really quick. Everyone must be in the correct body position. We have to have constant communication, whether we're releasing each other in and out. But in order to run an effective zone, one of the most critical pieces is our body position. We always talk about a head in, feet out type body position when we're in a zone. I think one of the big things that's really critical is we get caught up a lot of times in pointing our feet at our responsibility, meaning our shooter that's in front of us. But really, our legs should be pointed in the line of our blocking responsibility. So if a player was opening up, I wouldn't want to be like this per se. I'd want my feet over here if I'm supposed to be taking the near side. Also, another thing that's critical when we're moving in and out in our blocks, our head and body are always following the direction of the ball. So when I go out, if the ball goes left, obviously head and body. So we always have the same rules apply, always when we're on defense, right? Ball man, area center clocks anticipation, or ball player, I should say. Everybody's got to know their blocking angles. I'm not going to get into that. Like I said before, everybody's got different schemes or tactics. I think more times than not, you're trying to funnel the ball towards the goalie. So a lot of times you're taking the near side angles. X3 could be debated whether you stick with always a goalie left or depending on which way the ball is coming. I know people play it differently. When we're in a one-man zone, the importance of a one-man zone, like we said, the objective of a zone defense is to try to take away the center position. A lot of times the mistake in a one-man zone is I start moving out in my block, but yet nobody else is back, so there was no purpose of even being back. So you have to hold your block, and that's where the communication becomes important, and communicate for another teammate to be ready to come back so you can move into a 2 or 3 person zone. We must now, when I was going through some of our documents that we use with our players, the 6 meter rule now has changed some things, right? A smart attacker in the zone, right? If I get fouled when they come out and I'm outside 6 meters, I can immediately, they may be going back, but I can immediately now throw the ball up and then begin attacking right away to make this player make an immediate decision. If they jump out, then maybe I can go in. If they stay back, I might be able to fake all the way into the 4 meter line and shoot. So the 6 meter line is affecting a little bit how we play in the zone. It's really important with that too, depending on what kind of zone you're on. We talked about with pressing X3, it's really, really important. You always know what's going on behind you depending on the zone, but there might be a stair-stepping situation. Then when we're in a 2 or 3 person zone, we have to start, that's where we're like pistons of an engine, right? The goal is we should be active. Obviously it depends on personnel, hands, clock, distance. But in reality, when you start getting into a 2 or 3 person zone, you should be climbing in and out like the pistons of a motor moving in and out. The urgency piece is so critical. How you move out, when you go out, how when you arrive, where you place your offhand could be the difference of having the opportunity to get back or not. If I put my hand where maybe it slips and goes above the person, they have the chance to catch me, which is going to delay me from getting back, which is going to hold my teammate from getting out. So how we move in and out and how those coordinated movements are really important for us to be able to have an effective zone defense. Then the perimeter defenders, right, like I had said earlier, with communication, we're releasing each other. We can't rush out if there's nobody back. So how we have these coordinated movements is important. Take pride in your blocking. I talk about this all the time. There's some people that really don't want to block the ball, but appearance could be a deterrent on who's in front of you and who has the ball in their hand. How we hold our block. We see so many times whether somebody hold a block like this versus something like this is completely different for the person who has the ball. Also, I see hands like this sometimes, right? And we talk about having an open hand, slightly bending the fingertips. The goal when you're blocking a ball is to probably try to get it to do what? To come down, right? So fingertips slightly down, and again, it's a preference, but we prefer to be on a 45 because if I'm straight up, I can leave this open where I'm not going to have enough time. But also, if I'm in a 45, I can catch it here potentially with my elbow, right? But obviously, if I'm in a 45, I can go up with the person as well. The other thing is I know there's some players and some programs that like to block behind the head. I don't like to do that. For example, if somebody was opening this way, can I go further like this or with a hand in front of my head? The other thing is I believe if somebody throws the ball really hard and you have your arm back here, you're really putting yourself in a position where you can be injured. Then the opposite side of the zone. We always talk about there's no sleeping on the opposite side of the ball, for example. So if they're in a 3-4 zone, we have to expect at position 3 or 2 or 1, there's going to be some sort of movement, whether it's a drive, a post up. So the players that aren't involved in the immediate action, there's no falling asleep. 1 second, 1 inch could be the difference of the game. And then, we talked about yesterday the importance of X1 and X5. You fall asleep at X1, you start drifting down, person comes in, post up exclusion, now you're not playing an efficient game. Then our center defender, depending on the hand of the center, a great majority of the time, if it's a right-handed center, we should be on the left shoulder. Obviously, if a ball drops down to the wing, you have to change your head and body position to get to the inside. And then a left-handed center, you should be on the right shoulder. And it's amazing, just those little actions of not being in the right position is a turn, right? And it's a turn that's not turning. You should force, if you're the center defender, right? You should force the center into your help, right? Your zones. And if you're not on the right shoulder, you're taking away your help. So being on the correct shoulder as a center defender is really, really important. With us, there's plenty of programs that like to have their center defender get involved in the block. My feeling is a lot of time if I'm so concentrated in getting in a block, but one thing is if I come into a blocking position, that starts to bring my hips from more of a horizontal to a vertical. Again, it's a game of leverage. My feeling is when we're in a zone, the best thing I could do is push the center out as far as I can into that zone, and I'm doing my job. If I start worrying about a block, who's going to win the leverage war? The center with his legs out in front or me holding a block more in the vertical? They're going to push me further, and which is going to make our zone come back further. Again, it's a preference. Then, the reality is also I feel once we have come into a zone, the defender, you have to change your positioning. There's no reason for you to be up and laying on the center, which A, puts the decision in the referee's hands. But B, if we're talking leverage, you have an opportunity to back off and get more to your hands, which is going to afford you the opportunity to push him out or her out further. If we have the center outside 5 meters, we can force them to shoot from long distance. The other thing we talked about yesterday is how we crash on the ball. I told you, the relationship between the defender and the people playing in the zone is so critical. You see it all the time in water polo. We're in a zone, whether it's a 2-3-4, ball comes in, defender goes like this, thinks that the crashing players are going to arrive on the ball, and now it's a free goal. And it can't happen. You can't stop. You see it all the time too. When a crashing player is arriving, just as they're about ready to take the ball, they slow down, and it's the difference of the game. So how you go all the way through the ball until you have the ball. Obviously, a center defender has to be smart in how they judge this. You have to make the decisions quickly to not allow them to take a quick high percentage shot. Also, you have to realize, that's where the trust factor comes in, but if you have them in a far position where you can push, and then get your hands and you're going to depend on the crash to arrive. Obviously, there's some times where we overcommit out in a zone, and again, if the center has great position, then you have no other choice but then to take an exclusion. We don't want to give goals from the center. I believe also now with the 6 meter rule, the way I'm interpreting it, again, I haven't played a season of it, but if that center makes a turn, it seems like now it's pretty straightforward and let go of the ball, it's going to be a penalty. And it hasn't always been that way, but now from reading the interpretations, it seems like no matter what, there's no choice, penalty. So you cannot afford to give up a turn. Then, obviously, when we're in a zone, it's important, if we want to dictate how a team plays in their attack, can we go from a press to a zone to some sort of zone that leads to a trapping opportunity so we can get back into a press? The goal is to repress. And again, there's plenty of different ways tactically to do that. And we're not going to get into those things, but the goal should be to get out of a zone. You don't want to be playing zone defense for 25 seconds. If you have a way, either through tactics or the attack plays the ball to the wrong part of the pool where you have an opportunity to repress, those are things that you really want to try to do. Questions on anything as far as front court defense, as far as pressing or zone? Okay, now we're going to quickly move into transition offense. And the reality is, I said, yesterday when we were talking about the 3 phases, really that middle phase of the transition, whether it be defense or offense, is really what's going to put you in a position to have a positive effect, whether it's at your front court or having an opportunity to get a 6-on-5 or not be playing 5-on-6. So as far as our counterattack, okay, our counterattack begins with our defense. We said it yesterday. If the ball's in the net, then you can't counter. There's plenty of different tactics. Some teams leave before they have the ball. Some wait until they have the ball in hand. Every time, I believe no matter what, it's trying to build the right mentality. If your players counter hard every time, you're going to put the other team under more stress. The classic mistake in water polo a lot of times is if we don't have some sort of advantage, we don't swim the same way as when we have an advantage. And it shouldn't be that way. No matter what it is, you don't know. You don't know what's coming behind you. Maybe the advantage changes at the halfway mark. You don't know. Also, you don't know. Maybe somebody gets a cramp at the half of the pool. So it's got to be a mentality how you go down the pool every single time. What I will say is everybody remembers a given player that was just a total pain in the butt to play against because of just their pure energy. I think about certain teams that every single time they are going, sometimes recklessly, but they are going so hard. They are at some point going to put that team in a really tough position on defense simply by the way they swim down the pool. Absolutely. There's some teams that like to try to cut off all the way down the pool. I think you have to pick your times to choose that, because otherwise a lot of times what you're going to start doing is blocking the middle of the pool. But if there's early opportunities to seal and cut off and create advantages, you absolutely have to do it. I personally believe the earlier the better. Otherwise you got to start opening up the middle of the pool. Then sole goal, no matter what, if I'm swimming down the pool, whether it's on the first line or second line, and I have a defender next to me, my sole goal is to get them off their back, put their eyeballs down in the ground, so then they don't have awareness, they don't know what's going on around them. And I want to maintain the same speed all the way through the read section, when we're receiving, releasing, and into the attack zone. We cannot slow down our speed. Our first line, if we're coming off the back line, we've said, the first line really is critical for the second line. We have to establish deep right, left, and center all the way to the 2-meter line, a classic mistake, and we'll talk about it a little bit here in a little bit. They start arriving to 5 meters. They start slowing down, which affords the defending team to start messing with the second line players. Also, first line, if you sprint and get all the way down to the first line at 2-meter line, and if your player wants to cheat up, you're ready to step in, and you should have a free slam dunk goal. In order to have a successful backline counter, second line counter, like we talked about yesterday, there's got to be separation from X2, 3, and 4, from X1, center defender, and X5. Otherwise, that first line of defense is going to be able to slow down that back line. We talked about it yesterday on counter defense, but on offense, you have to remember the higher the numbers, the greater the risk. And hopefully everybody understands that. If I come down, we have a 6-on-5 counter, and I shoot quick, what is it going to be the other way? It's going to be a 1-on-nobody. What's a greater percentage? And we all know that. So the higher the numbers, the greater the risk. No lost balls. And this starts with the very first pass coming out of the goal. And we'll talk about how do we put our goalie in a comfortable position. So you cannot lose a ball on the counter, because more times than not, that's going to lead to a counter the other way. And going back to the mentality, a team should establish from the very first counter, no matter the advantage, to the very last counter, no matter the advantage, how they're going to go down and be relentless every time. Every single time. And teams that do that will start creating more consistent opportunities, even if they don't create a shot out of their counter, but early balls when they transition into their front court. What I have found for sure, no matter the level, the counterattack is the most important aspect for a successful front court. If you have an out of balance counter, you've killed your front court. If you have a counter where the first line stops at 5 meters, that means your second line's at 11, 12. Now you're out of the attack. So the counterattack is absolutely one of, if not the most important components of our front court attack. Obviously that period of time where teams are vulnerable is that period where you start going from transitioning from your counter and into your front court. An immediate movement can create real problems for the defense. So some principles, how we choose to swim is up to us. Imagine, just swimming could be the difference. How you choose to go down the pool is absolutely up to the individual. If you want to be the best team in the country, then you have to understand how critical the counterattack is for the success of your offense. Then you also have to understand, it's so easy in sports to think, oh, I don't have a one-on-nobody, two-on-one, or three-on-two, and I'm one of those three players. I'm just going to cruise. And now you've totally changed the complexion for those coming behind you. And then you have to understand how important committing to structure. Everybody has different structure. When I said I wanted to talk more on transition, I would believe most people try to get down deep right, left, and center. But the structure is so critical, not only for the opportunity to have some sort of shot on your counter, but also for your front court. Then some of the things that are really important that are just opposite of the defense. We want to try to stay on our line to the goal. We talked about, on counterattack defense, taking the offense off their line, making them go wide. We also don't want to stop and drop to the vertical. Absolutely want to stay on the fastest route to the goal while not dropping to the vertical. If we don't have to make a pass, why would you? Every pass is a risk. Every pass slows you down. Okay? Then you should never allow the defense, there should be no surprises. We see it all the time in water polo where a player is swimming, and all of a sudden they get jumped. And it's either a flip pass that leads to a turnover and an easy goal the other way. There should be no surprises. Absolutely. Then we should never allow, if we are a really, really good team, I should take personal pride in never allowing my defender to mess with a teammate coming behind me. Again, that commitment from the first line. So, first line counters, okay? As in the higher levels that we go, they start to become more uncommon, right? Because teams are smarter and they're having a more balanced attack. But my God, I believe if you want to be a successful team or the best teams, first line counters have to be goals. It's not 80%, it's 100% for the best teams. So first line counters don't happen that often, right? So you have to take advantage of them. So first line counters are one-on-nobodies, two-on-ones, and three-on-twos. And again, I will say, if you want to be the best, you don't get many chances off the first line. Those have got to be goals. And some of those first line counters, right, are going to end with finishing with a person on your back. And how you learn to finish with a person on your back, and how you approach finishing with a person on your back. And we're not going to get into those finer elements, but you see all too many times a person swim down with a one-on-nobody with a trailer on their back. They swim all the way to the 2 meter line with the ball still in the water, and what happens? The goalie jumps them. There's a whole preparation to arriving to a one-on-nobody with a player on your back, where you stop, so how you conserve the water, how you seal, how you separate, and how you finish. And those are going to be critical, because really you have to finish with a player on your back on a one-on-nobody sometimes, on a two-on-one, and or on a three-on-two, right? It could go all the way down to so as you're coming down on a three-on-two, for example, right? For example, they hit and the ball goes here, they hit, ball goes here, and the trailing defender's arriving, and sometimes you'll have to finish with a player on your back. Having the ability to finish with a player on your back are goals that have to happen, and they're critical. So one-on-nobodies, like I said, okay, it's all about speed, not losing your momentum. How you approach, I always say by 5.5, 6 meters, the ball comes into hand, you're stepping on the ball, which gives you an opportunity as you step on the ball to take a look back to see how much distance you have between yourself and the trailing player. Obviously, with a one-on-nobody, the earlier the goalie can get the ball out, on a one-on-nobody, you want to steer them towards the goal. You don't want to slow down their progression. So, if they're coming down the right side of the pool, you want to steer them toward the goal. So the ball shouldn't be outside. It's got to be out in front of them and steering them towards the goal, and vice versa on the left. Then how you receive the ball, this ball should be out in front, so there should be no slowing down. Obviously, if you arrive way down here, the ball still hasn't come. At some point, you may have to take it dry, but really on a one-on-nobody, we want to try to lead them to the goal. And then how we're finishing, we've talked all the time. If I'm coming down the right side of the pool and I have enough time, I want to come towards this post, the right post, 3 posts, lock, get the goalie up, and now slide across the goal, because they shouldn't be able to stay with me laterally, and vice versa from the left part. Then 2-on-1s, okay? We know we always talk about a chain of command here, but we know a first line counter or 2-on-1 is coming from one of these three positions. And you have to know, look, sometimes it can happen late, but the goal should be to know by half if you have a first line counter. And we always talk about, if I'm at X2, the first step is I should be looking which way? Immediately. To my left. There's no reason to look right. This is the stands or the desk. I should be looking left. X3, I should be looking left and right. And X4, I should be looking right. That's the first step. Breakout speed, and I'm looking. Do we have something here on this first line? Then, it's really important on a 2-on-1, okay? Recognition early, right? And then we want to try to give our goalie comfort. So it's simple. For me, when we're talking about this here on a 2-on-1, it's pretty simple. We want to stay on our fastest line to the goal. If the defender's right here, do I have to move off this line? Absolutely not. If the defender starts sliding over, then I can slowly start to open up to give my goalie comfort to get the ball out. Same thing over here, for example. Then as we come down the pool, let's say the ball comes this way and the defender's moving this way. We see this all too many times, this player just stay like this. You should start moving to improve your angle. Look, if the defender comes back, then we're ready to move back. And again, through this whole process of releasing, how I take the ball, the later if it comes dry, how I open onto my back with a breast kick, always opening with my shooting arm. So I'm right-handed, I want to open this way. How I turn with the ball. We see so many times as this player comes down, turns like this, and what happens? They get jumped. And we want to create habits. There's plenty of times where you could turn like this and be safe, but if we're creating muscle memory, it's just this. It's clockwork, always turning to the outside. Okay, again, obviously 2-on-1, pretty straightforward. Like I said, if the defender was starting to come towards the ball here, we need to follow in here. Okay, then obviously with any front line counter and quite frankly any back line counter, we don't want to get fouled. We want to, so if that player's getting close and I'm starting to get nervous, the ball should go into the hand. And I'm swimming now with the ball in the hand. If they're coming for a full press, legs are down, I'm up, and I'm ready to make a pass before they can foul me. Then, obviously, there can't be any sort of flip passes. A bad pass to here is the difference of this player having time to fake a couple times or now this player having to shoot with a player on his back. So an inside water shot. Then, 3-on-2. The last first line counter. Again, we know X2, X3, and X4. Again, breakout speed, looking to my left, right, and right. We should know by half. Okay? Then, how we open. When we come down, how we're opening slightly, especially on the outside with these players. We talked about yesterday on defense, a lot of times teams are going to try to force the goalie early on to maybe put the ball where? To the middle. So if these players are out close, then you have to open. You can't keep swimming. The worst thing you can do, especially as we start going on 3-on-2s, this is where it becomes more common. If we all swim in a straight line, that's not giving the goalie comfort. They don't want to put the ball out. So we have to slightly open. But then it's dictated by where the defender is. Then, I tell the guys or the women to open, and all of a sudden the defender's still way over here, and they're opening all the way here. Doesn't make sense. And I can't tell you. You have to read how far to open. Because all I know is I'm only going to open as far as I have to be able to receive the ball, but still maintain and be as close as I can to my line to the goal. Then, with that, with the passing, both on a 2-on-1 and a 3-on-2, goalies, there's opportunities. If we get it out early, it could be a wet pass. But we like to start saying here by half, if the ball hasn't come out, we have to be ready to receive it dry. And, in a ball to the middle, a lot, we're ready to probably catch that dry too. The last thing we need is that ball starting to skip off. Then, the simple elements of a 3-on-2. As we come down the pool, obviously, let's just say the ball comes out right. More times than not, teams want to bring the ball out to the right. And the defense starts shifting this way. Middle player, you have to open towards the ball. Because the defense starts shifting this way, I'm opening here, and now it's being broken down from a 3-on-2 to potentially a 2-on-1. Now, if this player starts coming back, then I open back onto my line, right? And then as we come down the pool, classic mistake, you know, when we start talking about structure, a lot of times we'll see kids, especially at the younger ages, they want to move away from the ball. If a team's smart, one player here can do what? Guard two and force the ball out here. Go ahead, right? So structure at this point becomes so crucial. On a 3-on-2, we talk about, as we arrive, right, 5 meters, ball's going into hand. Middle player is coming down about 4.5, 5 meters. We drop to the vertical. And as I come forward, and this player is on defense, and obviously we're coming forward. Now, I'm watching this player. If this player is moving towards the ball, I'm now have my legs down. If this player is moving this way with my legs down and my hand up, I'm sliding this way towards the ball, which makes this player now do what? Make a decision. Are you going to come further with me? Okay, then it's a clear decision for this player. If this player comes back, then I move back. But legs already down. Then, like we said yesterday on defense, right, a lot of teams, once this player, say they're arriving to the middle in this situation, this player leaves, and now you have a penalty. But let's just say the trailing defender is arriving to the middle. If this player is smart and he's arriving and starting to come this way, they're going to start shifting this way to seal and try to get some sort of inside ball. But it's really important we keep this type of structure and not in a line, either for passes being taken, right, or without, if I keep swimming here, not being ready for the ball. Legs are down, and I'm just sliding forward. Always ready. Then, obviously, with our goalies, before I forget this, whether it be a first line or second line, at least with our programs, we always want them to scan from right to left. We like getting the ball out right. Why? More times than not, we like to take the ball this way if we can. That doesn't mean we have to play it right, but we want our goalies scanning right to left, left to right, starting with the first line. Nothing there. You've checked it twice. Now we start with the second line, right to left, left to right. And again, we try to get the ball out right. Again, the earlier we get the ball out, the easier we believe it is for our attackers to have time to read the situation, and the easier the finish becomes. Then, second line counters. Four on threes, 5 on 4s, 6 on 5s. So the second line counters, just like I said, defensively, are the exact same as the first line. Now, the thing that we have to keep in mind, this first line is everything for the success of those behind them, the second line, how they swim down. So when we start talking about first line counters, let's just say as you swim down, you have a player with you, your sole goal, get them off the back, eyes down, sprinting so they have to swim as hard as they can. And I get down and I don't stop until I'm at the 2 meter line. There's no drifting. Same here and same here. So then with this, a goalie, the only reason you should play to the first line is if we have an advantage. Otherwise, the ball's going to be under pressure, and the ball's just going to go right back to where? The second line. More passes, more risks. More passes, slower you go. Then, when we're talking about backline counters, goalies, again, the earlier we can get the ball out, the earlier we make ourselves available for them, the better. 4 on 3s. Okay, probably, like I said yesterday, one of the least common advantages, or the ones that you don't see as much, but a 4 on 3 is the same as a 1 on nobody, except you have the first line. And again, if you go back to our counter standards, the distance or separation between our first line and the second line coming is critical. If I do my job here, I've taken my player out where they can never mess with somebody coming behind, simply by how I swim. And if they want to take a risk, I don't ever slow down. I sprint, and then I drop my legs down. If they ever want to take a risk, you'll never do it again, unless you're not smart, because we're going to step in behind, and it's a free goal. So now on a 4 on 3, the structure, and I'm going to quickly move through these, right? the structure is 3-1. Obviously, here on a 4-on-3, depending on where it's coming, it doesn't matter, wherever this player is coming. Again, we have to be careful when there's a first line involved. More times than not, we talk and we work on taking this ball dry because we want to take the risk out of it. You don't know. Maybe you play a perfect ball here on the water, a little flat, and now it takes off skipping. There's now defenders that can be there to take it. So we want to try to receive the ball dry. How we receive and don't lose our speed is critical. Obviously, a 4-on-3 structure is 3 on the first line, 1 up. Then, for us, it's critical, right? If this player does any sort of movement, I move. I bring his attention back. It's a classic mistake in water polo. They move and I just sit. So it allows them to keep doing what? Just this is going to make this player at least look back. So now I've taken the attention back. Then as we come down, it's really important how you approach the goal. The approach to the goal is everything. Again, 5.5 meters, stepping on the ball. Can I attack the block? I should know the distance. I would never shoot a ball quick. The higher the numbers, the greater the risk. If I crank off a ball here quickly, what is it going back the other way? 3-on-2. Much better percentage. Now, as I'm coming forward and faking, one thing we talk about is we like our middle player. So let's just say our player's faking this way. We're going to move the opposite way a little bit in hopes that this player is trying to block and maybe we can catch something here. Or at least now I'm pulling this block out of a position. Okay? Then, and I'm just going to leave 3 players down here. 5-on-4, right? We know with a 5-on-4, basically it's the same as a 2-on-1. Again, there's many different ways that a 5-on-4 can happen. First, as we open, right, ball comes out here, pressing team. Some coaches, they love the release to be pressed. Press, press, press. But now, for example, our center defender is passing the line of the ball, and now this is turning into a 5-on-4, whether it's the ball out right or ball out left. Because really, and this is why I say how we go down the pool, you don't know whether it's a 5-on-4. At this point, it's a 6-on-5, which is a 3-on-2. But now, I'm passing the line of the ball, just like on a 3-on-2. If this player is pressing here, I'm opening towards the ball, but now I'm passing the line of the ball. Now it's turning into a 5-on-4, for example. Or the other way it can happen, right, again, ball over here pressing, or a post-up, where maybe these 2 players are canceled out and they get a jump. What we do know on a 5-on-4, okay, the structure is 3-2. Again, how that first line gets down and occupies their defenders, okay. How this is happening, either if it's a direct ball to the defender because these 2 players are out, how I open and keep my speed, or if a ball goes out to the right or the left that's being pressed, how I'm opening towards the ball. And the other critical element here is that how this first line swims down could be the difference of this player, for example, communicating for this player not to do what? Commit to the first line. So a player that swims down slow won't be able to recognize this situation is happening. Instead of a 5-on-4, it's a 3-2 structure. So now I can tell this person 5-on-4, and they know to stay put. So this commitment, I can't emphasize enough, is everything for the back line. Then again, with that, okay, if any of these defenders cheat, we're ready to go in behind. They move, I move. It's always the rule of thumb. If we make the mistake and we don't communicate a 5-on-4, so basically, right, at this juncture, we have a 6-on-5 counter going. And they don't realize that this is being pressed, right? And we're opening past the line of the ball, so it should be a 5-on-4, but this player is sprinting. You know, there's teams that have this 4th player go to the post. There's also times where maybe they go outside and this player goes, right? In, for example. But now, let's just say this player is committing to the post. There has to be communication at some point from this because we have to get back to our 3-2 structure. So I'm ready to immediately shoot up, and this player should be immediately ready to shoot out. Obviously, if he caught it halfway down or she caught it halfway down, then they can move back out. But if they've committed all the way to the 2-meter line, we have to get back to that 3-2 structure. Okay. 6-on-5 is the same as a 3-on-2. And again, I don't want to keep repeating, but the commitment from those first three. But now, more importantly, I will always, the player that I always believe creates a successful 6-on-5 counter is the fourth player. And how are they willing to commit? Because it's so easy. Oh, I'm the fourth player. How am I choosing to swim down? But how you choose to swim could be the absolute difference of having an opportunity on a 6-on-5 counter or not. So one easy way to think of this, right? Just like a first line counter, I should be looking right, right and left, and right. But one easy way, how do I know who is the fourth player to go? If the ball comes out right or to the center defender, it's easy. This player. Now look, in a zone of 4-2, everything can change, right? Somebody crashes, somebody ends up in front. But in theory, more times than not, if the ball goes out right or center, it's this player. There's only one chance. If the ball comes out to him, then it's this player or whoever's in front, I should say. But what we tell our center defenders to do, right? The last thing you want is three players all on the same line on the back line. So we tell our center defenders how you come around and seal and delay. So we can have somebody who's out in front for that commitment. Obviously, you know, the fourth player, in theory, is going to be the one that's furthest up. But this is why we want to delay, seal, 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 and now go. So these two players aren't swimming down the pool on the same line and one player can stay in between. And again, we like to try to get the ball out right more times than not. So a lot of times with us, this will be the fourth player. But an easy way to think is ball out right or to the center defender here. Ball here, it's one of these two. More times than not, probably this guy because our center defender is delaying. Again, the structure ends up, it's really critical, right? How we shift, whether the player's coming here or there's some teams that come outside and somebody shifts into the post. And again, the structure is a 4-2. Now, as this player swims down with the ball, it's the same deal. If this player overcommits, I'm going, right? I'm ready to step in. Then this opposite player, all too many times you see it, gives the defense an opportunity by where they stop. You cannot arrive too close to the first line. You should be stopping at 6 meters legs down because it's easier, just like when we're driving. It's easier to go forward than backwards. It's normal. So I can stop at 6, take the ball. If I have room to go forward, I can attack the block and go. To receive a ball at 4 and have somebody jumping and have to retreat is not a good position to be in. So how we arrive and how close we get to the first line, that's why 2 meters is critical, could be the difference of having an opportunity or not. Then obviously with all of these, the higher the numbers, the greater the risk. I shoot a ball quick here, it's a 1 on nobody back. So it's in the approach. 6 meters, ball in hand, stepping, ready to approach. I know this. If I'm a right-hander over here, I want to make my life easier. So I want how I approach and, you know, make this person believe that I want to go to the goal to get a commitment here. Now I'm ready to play and I'm ready to go back. I want to bring this player to me. I would rather set this up here than me have to take a shot here. So how I, commit this player is critical because more teams than not want you to shoot the ball from here. So if I approach this the right way and I pull them, I've done my job and I'm ready to go back. And that's the communication piece. I'm here, I play to Johnny. Johnny, go. I got you. Then we have to know again, any situation, if we are up big, you would hope from a defensive standpoint, body length at max, which isn't that much. But if we are up big, there is the opportunities maybe to always play the ball down to the wing and run like a 6-on-5 rotation. But, if the team's really trailing the right way, probably not happening. How I step in, if this player moves, how I move behind, if this player goes up with me, then, but those are elements like a 6-on-5. So, again, any of these players move, I move. And the last thing, again, I'll say is there's no reason we see it. Now, look, at the end, if we know we don't have an advantage and this is our center, as I'm coming down, I might do this. But again, I'm not playing to the first line unless it's some quick transition ball for a center or somebody's committed up to the second line. Otherwise, there's no reason. The ball comes here, he moves, and it's coming right back, and now this player is arriving. Okay. Then the goal always is, as we come into our front court, but at the end of our transition, I should know, do we have an opportunity for a shot or not? If we don't, this is proactive positioning. So if the trailer is going to arrive, or if I was to shoot the ball, I'm going to get kicked in the head and it'll be a one-on-nobody. The next element, but also as you're coming down, no matter what, as you're swimming with this ball on either side, but I always talk this side, right? You should also be locating your center, because the next option out of your transition is early ball to the center. So obviously if the center was here, we are in this type of situation, this player, if he was being pressed, should be in a proactive position and already on the move for a live ball. The difference between a live ball and getting fouled is the difference probably between an exclusion or a great positive opportunity. Because if they foul, goalie can come out or they can step back. So if you sit and wait and the ball comes, it's too late. It's proactive. So I'm on the move. Just like I always have to yell at our players. It kills me. But centers here, they're arriving like this. Why wait? They should be proactive immediately. All it takes 3 seconds of work. We're trying to build a mentality, but trying to play an efficient game. As I arrive, imagine, into the counter, I work for 2 hard seconds, ball here to here. Here we go, 6-on-5. Instead of having our center fight for 20 seconds or playing against a press and having to move the ball against the press. And this is one, if not the most vulnerable period for a defensive team at the end of the transition. You can always catch teams here. Then, that comes back to coordinated movements. And, there's not time, but like skill work, that was one of the things with Tony. He was always so quick. I knew if I could just get the ball onto his hand, he could slap it down in here onto Bailey's hand, and we got a 6-on-5. And we didn't have to work hard for that. He worked 2 strokes, ball on a line, instead of sitting and waiting. So, some just cliff notes for our the transition. No matter what, no matter the advantage, how we go down the pool is up to us. We got to go every time, and we have to make it hard on our opposition. We never let the defense dictate how we play. So how we go down and how we keep progressing puts them on their heels. Okay? Then we choose to let a defense take us off our line or put us into the vertical, because I can always swim ball in hand. That's why, today with the younger kids, they were swimming with the ball. You should know how to move every which way with the ball. First line counters have to be goals. First line players have to understand the gravity of their actions for those coming behind on the second line. Nobody, it should be a mentality for every player in any team to not allow an opponent to mess with your teammate coming behind. Especially imagine your defender's wrestling against their center, and then you're going to let somebody mess with him on the second line because you're choosing not to swim hard. It's insane. Then the best opportunities, the best teams are creating advantages off the back line. I know that we've had games where our 6-on-5 has been terrible, couldn't score in our zone attack, but what got us the game done is we were hitting backline counters, and it could be the difference. But then that takes great structure and great commitment from each person. Then on second line counters, I think one of the big things is recognition between a 5-on-4 and a 6-on-5. And that could happen from those who sprint down and see early, but also how we're recognizing before half, maybe if the ball is being pressed and opening. The fourth player, especially on the 6-on-5 counter, they are the difference. They are the piece that will either put a positive or negative action. With good structure, we'll have the ability to quickly balance into our front court and have an effective attack in our front court. Structure means 2 meters. Structure means deep right, deep left, center. Then the greatest opportunity, like I said, happens between phases. And like we said, at the end of the transition, a lot of teams, they rest. 2 seconds of movement could create something really quick and positive. And that's how you play an efficient game. It's working. I'd rather work. You ask any kid, would you rather work for 5 seconds or 30? You would hope they would say 5. Then for our front court, Some of the goals and standards, okay? We want to create high opportunity percentage shots or high percentage opportunities to earn exclusions. We want to keep the defense in an uncomfortable state and dictate how they play defense. We want them to constantly feel uncomfortable. Every defender, doesn't matter where the ball is, every defender should be working. We want to have great structure and balance. We know how important that is for our success, but also protecting ourselves against their counter. Position 1 and 5 in the center on 2-meter line center in the center of the goal. We want to play a percentage in an efficient game. We force the defense to make decisions. So we force them into situations where they have to choose. Do I go out? Do I stay back? Then we will make decision-making simple by forcing our opponents into situations where it's either choose X or Z. X or Y, excuse me. And then, no matter what, we never need to be dictated by the defense. We can always, you see smart teams. You know what? Defense did a good job. They back up, they take the ball. You can put it in the corner or put it down towards your end and reset and play defense. You should never be put in a compromised situation. You can always take that away from them. Back up, dump the ball. Front court standards starts with our transition, having great balance. Then we want to quickly balance out and see if we can catch our opponents off guard. We want to be in a proactive position, like I said, especially early on, but you want to be in a proactive position at all times. That'll give us the opportunity to drive, release, move the ball from the right to the left, pass and or shoot. We want to constantly put the defense under pressure and make them feel uncomfortable by the way we move. Then we also want to work for high percentage opportunities. And we understand if we can open up our center, right, then we're ready to play for them. A ball to the center in the right moment is the safest ball. There's no question. If we do the right things and open up our center, ball goes in, we can always protect. They crash, we're ready to step in. Then we will always have one side finishing, one side closing. Communication, without a doubt, is our strongest weapon. Whether it be me telling a teammate to go, I got you, right? Or a teammate being split on that they don't see, or stair step, they don't see somebody. Then attacking a front court press. I'm just going to go over the basics of a press in a zone, so I'll quickly move through this. 3 things have to happen. The thing that happens so many times against a pressing defense is you never establish your real front court positions. You're not on the 2-meter line, you're on 4, then you're at 10 or 11. So you have to establish good balance in positioning. If you stop early, if you let them grab you, they're winning. You have to move. Then the center. The center's job is not to chase the ball, it's to hold one side. It's the outside player's job to get the ball around to the center. Then our perimeter players have to have the ability to move the ball from the left to the right. Coordinated time movements. Then, without being fouled. Every time you get fouled, we know that gives the defender a chance to stay in a press. Then, when a team is pressing hard, their goal is to disrupt the timing, right? That's their goal. And make us uncomfortable in our attack. You have to remain. You see so many times when a team maybe is physically dominating another team, a team starts to panic. They start throwing balls on their back. You never want to throw a long ball against a press. That's a steal every time. Then we don't sit. It's the classic thing. You can see it in any game. There's been so many times where maybe we played a team that loves to press, and it goes one of 2 ways. If we're proactive and moving, we're earning exclusions. If we sit, it's done. Because most pressing teams, what do they want to do? They want to physically grab you. But if they're able to physically grab you, that's on you. That means you sat and you waited till they got a hold of you. Because if they were to try to grab you and you move, at some point you're getting out of it. But if it gets to the point where they physically have you, that's on you. But then if you just sit there, then you're really letting them dominate the situation. You have to move. Because if you start moving and they're grabbing you, now who are you putting the pressure on? Not only the defense, but the people on the outside of the pool that are calling the game. So then a great majority of the time, most teams when they're playing pressing, they're in the vertical position. And when you play in the vertical position, I said it's a game of leverage. This allows you with some sort of movement, if I move and I step back, now they're going to even give me more leverage because they're in the vertical, and now I might be able to take them and get around them. Then Their next step is they want to physically grab you while remaining in the vertical position, and that really puts them in a dangerous spot as far as ejections if you do move. So moving the right way will create opportunities and put a lot of pressure on the officials. Then there can't be any lost balls or turnovers in a press. Part of the reason they're playing press is they're gearing up to go the other way. So how you take care of the ball. I have the ball. None of my teammates, I don't feel comfortable throwing the ball to any of my teammates. I don't have to throw the ball. Like I said before, I can sit on it the whole time. So there's no lost balls. Also, you have to keep your head up against the press. Then the classic mistake is Johnny's throwing me the ball in a press, and this defender's here, and I wait for the ball to come all the way to me. I have to go meet the ball. Maybe that's going to deny this player jumping into the lane. I have to go get the ball. You can't wait, ever. So you have to go meet the ball. And quite frankly, if it takes an offensive foul sometimes, as you go meet the ball to beat the defending player from jumping you, okay, so be it. But at least you're setting a tone with them. Then we have to have good spacing. A lot of times what happens against the press is you start to lose your balance, a player starts getting pushed out, and now they're in a stair-stepping situation at the end, or a splitting situation. So establishing and keeping your structure. Then we have to know against the press the best time to break it, like I said, is at the end of the transition. You have to have immediate movement, because if we have immediate movement and we get inside of this player, they have to do what? Help, and now we've got it. We busted it. You see teams being able to play press a lot because there isn't that movement, and the teams just sit. Then, if in a releasing situation, there's a couple simple details. If the ball was over there, and I have the opportunity to go get the ball, I'm going to do it. Or 2 quick strokes on my back, but how we release, the location of our release, the last thing we want to do is go away from our target. If I push in, now I can be here. But we don't want to just start going backwards. If they're playing super high in the lane, then I go through. And how I go through, for example, right? There's 2 types of drives the way I see it. Every time you're either driving for a goal, let's say the ball's here, our center's here. So he's playing super high. I can't do it. So now I'm going to try to get in behind. Maybe that's going to bring this player off. But also this player can be pushing in because maybe I can hit this player where he's rubbing right off my shoulder for a ball in. Then position 1 and 5. Okay? As you come up, you can't come on a route like this. You have to take this hard line. All you need is your right and or if you're a lefty, your left hand to catch a ball here and in. Then when we drive, like I just said, we want to put pressure. As soon as I get in behind and I seal and I shoot down the line, it's really important. That could break the whole sequence. Then if I do have an advantage, there's no reason. So if this player stays with me, maybe that's the time to hit it. But if I get into here, the last thing I want to do is I have this advantage and I start doing this. Now I've let the defense what? Off the hook. I need to stay right here and just inside the post. So now this player must travel further. And now we have a situation where we can get the ball. Then ideally, versus a press, okay? One of the things our goal is to get a live ball to our center. If we can get a live ball into our center, we're in business. Also, we have to know some simple elements, right? Against the press, I have the ball, I want to get it to Johnny. I'm not super sure about his player. I can always do what? Fake. He jumps, I'm not playing the ball. You can ball fake. Eye contact also is everything. If I don't know if I'm not certain that he wants the ball and or is ready for the ball, I should not throw the ball. I am in control of the game. We have to have that communication. Then again, if we get fouled, how we climb up immediately with the ball. So how I protect myself when I'm fouled, how I climb up, A, to maybe put the goalie, because a lot of times in a press, the goalie might be coming out, to put the goalie back into the goal, right? And B, right, to put myself maybe potentially in a shooting situation and or a good passing situation. So ball and immediately climbing up. Then the last thing I'll say about pressing as far as some of the rules is passing is everything. And if you don't feel 100% sure that you can make the pass, you absolutely should not make the pass against the press. Then zone attack, okay, again, starts with our balance. Spacing is critical. Got to take advantage of when our opponents, the defense moves from a press into the zone. There's windows for balls to the center. There's windows to step in and shoot. Where they're swimming back, they don't even have a block up sometimes. So taking advantage of that early window of those one-on-one situations, right? A great time is ball comes to me, my player's on his way back, I go right at him. He comes out, I go in. He stays back, I'm ready to go. Simple game. Then we have to know, okay, if another player splits over towards our attacking player, we'll be ready to drive on the splitting player. We cannot ever allow a player to be hanging out for example, like this, or even higher. So the 3-4 zone, for example, and 2 splitting, I have got to go. And now he has to make a choice. And how I drive, where I drive, ready for the ball. And then we have to know when there is movement, how I read this. This player goes back, I'm ready to step in. I might come up a little bit and in. If this player stays with me, I just back up and slowly rotate up. But now we play a ball here. This player has to make a decision. We have a 2-on-1. You either come back or you're going to pay. If you come back, we're ready to reverse the ball and be ready to come back into our center. So we don't let a defense dictate. Then how we drive is critical. Every time we drive, you know, I will say this. I had the opportunity to have to play defense on this side of the pool. And I will say, the one thing, and it's not just because he's my friend, but the way Tony drove with intensity, and I had to guard him all the time in practice, I believe as far as a driver, he was the hardest person I had to guard. And I'm talking, I had to guard everyone, the Vargas, the Cautious, and they're amazing. But Tony's intensity level and how quick he was out the gates made it really challenging. And that always made me think when I became a coach, how you drive, you see, oh, it's a 3-4 zone, I have to go through from 2, and a guy's just, or a girl's just cruising. You never know. Every time he drove, he wanted the ball for a goal. And he probably only got it 1 out of 10. So how you drive is critical. The location, like I said, we open up all the time, but you let the defense off the hook because you stay wide. Where you drive, where you finish, how you're ready for the ball. If you start running out of room, you should drop to the vertical a little bit more with an egg beater kick and high frequency arms and start conserving the water. Then once we finish our drive, how we balance out. We can't just sit in here unless you're going in on a post up. But if you sit in here now, you're bringing a player closer to the center. So how we balance out. And the timing of our drives is really important. How we rotate, like I just said, from position 1 or 5, depending on what the defense does. And then how it's so important. If this player moves back, we step into the free water. You can't just sit. If they stay with you, back up and pull them out wide. Very easy. Then if we play a ball to our center, I brought this up earlier. So let's just say they're in a 2-3-4. Ball goes into the center. This player crashes. This player goes out, and this player crashes. It's simple. I step in. I back up and protect myself. So the choice of stepping in or backing up and protecting yourself. Then we know, okay, our goal, once it gets to a zone, we want to create, right, a triangle attack where we're trying to open this up, which will pull the blockers. They have a choice. You either take your angle and responsibility, or, right, if you do that, then it's probably opening our center who's working back. So we want to get to a triangle attack, but then we also have to know the element of the opposite side with movement. And that's where a team, you can see the teams that are organically close, how this player is locking but knows what's going on over here at all times. And then the teams that aren't, because then this player isn't really threatening the goal and they're just sitting here watching the drive and nothing's changing. The situation's not changing. Then, if we get to this situation and we do a good job of attacking, there's options. They come out, best ball in water polo, we go in. They stay back, then somebody's got to step up and shoot. Simple. Very simple. So we always want to attack all the way through the end. Some of the best balls for the center, clock's going 5-4. Most teams, guess what they start doing? They start moving out. 3, 2, ball into the center, exclusion. Here we go, 6-on-5. So we don't stop our attack. We keep attacking aggressively all the way through. Okay. Should we pause there?
Sure.
Where are we at on time?
8 o'clock.
Well,
Is that all we have to do? Like as coaches?
that's it.
And then. That's it. He's like, let's do it.
No, I mean, there's 5-on-6, but I was just going to go over the standard. There's no tactics. Maybe I just read through those and that's it. Probably won't do. You and I can maybe do video later, unless they can, or we could do it for 20 minutes where you're just recording it anyways, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just, look, literally for this, I'm going over the standards, and that's it. Does that work? All right. You tell me when. Well, we were going to watch that, but you guys, I mean, but he's going to video it, so.
You don't have to be here for the, you're not in the shot.
Unless you want to.
Right.
That's your call, but I mean, it's
So
a
you'll be
lot.
able to watch it later, too.
Yeah. Listen, Tony, he wanted 3 to be tied into 2. I'm like, dude, no. And I mean, these are bare bones. All right, you tell me when.
When?
All right. So, 5-on-6. I feel like the backbone, really the character of your team, right? Why? You're down a player. And obviously you're at a disadvantage. Pretty straightforward. So, some general concepts, goals, and standards. 5-man defense is the greatest indicator of what your team is comprised of, right? It's a moment of adversity. And how you choose to react will be the difference of where you go as a group. Because we know in the sport of water polo, right, one of the first things everybody looks at is the percentages of 6-on-5, 5-on-6. And that doesn't mean that dictates the outcome. I mean, we've been terrible on 6-on-5 and had been successful, and then we haven't been. But the bottom line in the sport of water polo, we know we have to be ready to play 5-on-6. It is what it is. Then, rather than complain, got to be realistic, and you know what's going to happen. Whether the call's right or wrong. Nobody's perfect, right? And, probably I could do a better job of just understanding that sometimes, but it is what it is. Nobody's perfect. It's the hardest game for referees to officiate. We know that. So it's going to happen. But what I can say is if you can consistently shut down teams with your 5-man, it really is debilitating on your opponent if they can't score on 6-on-5. Psychologically, for a lot of teams, it becomes debilitating. So a great 5-man defense, or 5-on-6 defense, I should say, takes coordinated defense, coordinated movements and communication. You have to take great pride no matter what defense you run, whether it's some sort of hitting defense or counter rotation, whatever it may be. If you don't have great body position, you're not going to be able to cover area. There's going to be a strong chance that you can be grabbed or pushed. So body position is literally everything on 5-on-6. Then you have to know your responsibilities, whatever your given responsibilities are in your team's tactics, your blocks. Who is your primary responsibility and your next responsibility? Some players have up to 3 responsibilities. Then it's vital how you communicate and release each other. Then again, like I said earlier, maybe you don't like the shot block, but the appearance has got to be there. You got to want to block the ball. I got to believe every coach, whatever their tactics are, is probably trying to funnel the ball through blocks towards the goalie, towards the middle. Pretty straightforward. Then the goalie has to be able to read the defense. You know, unfortunately, they chose to be goalies, right? And they're always going to be the one looked at that made the mistake. But the goalie has to clean up the errors of those in front of him, especially X2. You know, and just so it's clear, we have, because just so when I'm talking about it, we know, so X1, X2, X3, X4, X5. And the goalie sometimes will have to change its position because maybe, depending on whatever your tactics are, X2 made the wrong decision, and the goalie needs to make the adjustment in that case. There can't be a discussion. It's too late by then. Then you have to be very disciplined. I always believe that really, if you have a great 5-on-6, right, no matter how things are going, you're going to have a shot in the game. You're gonna be able to keep yourself with a chance for the game. And you've heard in so many different sports, right? Defense wins championships. And in water polo, there's a lot of times where 5-on-6 has won championships or medals. So some of the standards of 5-on-6. Communicate. Everybody's got to know we're down. Then for us, you know, you see it so many times. The person who has been excluded, right? They're not happy, right? They're going underwater. They're heading this way. The box is here. What if the ball turns over? So we talk about, like, look, you can't change what's already happened. No matter what kind of face you give to the referee, they're not going to reverse their decision. And sometimes it takes a while to learn that. So what you can do is sprint to the box, right? It's your third foul, sprint to the box. They throw the ball's still at half court, sprint to the box. Simple. So the excluded player should always sprint. Then you got to defend. You got to set up quickly. You got to establish your backline defenders against the quick. You got to take away the first attack, the quick. Then the presentation of our block, and I talked about that earlier. Protecting the lines at 1. So this is 1. I assume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. These lines from 1 and 6 are everything for the goalie. Goalie can't help for this quick ball and this quick ball. They can help on a wrap near side, but that ball that's inside the block, they're in a tough way. So protecting lines at 1 and 6. Obviously, there's plenty of skills that you can work on. If you're late at X1, you can go right, left. But again, I'll leave that up to all the coaches. That's your decision. But you got to help your goalie. No goals from the post. There's certain teams that like to play super heavy on the post, and there's certain teams that prefer to block. But at some juncture, especially early in the 6-on-5, the post players should feel some sort of presence. They shouldn't just be able to float around freely. Then, communication. All players should know if they're in a 6-in rotation. You know, watching on the live stream today, you hear the teams yell 6 or a coach yell 6. Everybody should know what's happening in a 6-in rotation. What are my responsibilities? Whatever your given defense is. So everybody knowing what the movements are of the offensive team. Knowing your opponent's strengths. That comes from scouting reports or what hand a person is, what hand especially on the post. Then also watching the eyes, the body of our opponents is something else that could be helpful. Okay? We never want to be stuck in the vertical, except when I'm out in a block. Beyond that, you should always be in some sort of semi-horizontal, semi-vertical position. Okay? And then the other thing is how you move in and out is the difference of your teammate having the ability to move. Whether you're in a normal blocking defense or some sort of hitting defense. So what kind of energy you go out and how you come back with what kind of energy dictates for your next two teammates, how they may have to wait and have a chance to move. Then you have to maintain body positioning throughout the whole 5-on-6. Okay? One of our rules is, but you know, there's teams that cheat. But you know, let's just say they're in a 6-in rotation. You know, 5 wide can look like he's passing to 4, so this player starts cheating out early, and what do? They go to the 2-post. Now, once the ball leaves the fingertip of the hand, unless there's some remote control, it's not going to change directions. But again, that's dictated by whatever your preference is as a coach. Then your head and body, especially we see it sometimes when teams start attacking, out hitting the ball, for example, or some sort of, attack on one triangle or the other. But head and body have to follow the ball. So let's just say the ball went from 5 to 4, we hit out, ball goes down to 1. This player comes back to the post this way, and all before you know it, the ball's already back at 4 and they have no clue. So your head and body should always follow the ball. The one time where you can just switch, so if I'm X4 or X5 and I'm on the post like this, the ball goes down to 1, I'm like this, and it goes to 6, I don't have to do this big El Rolo. I can just change my head to this. But every other one, head and body should be following the ball. Then, rebounds. The reality is if you get to a situation where there's a rebound, how we're closing this off, sealing, all rebounds have to be the defensive team's ball. 2 players should be taking the post players. Then, when we're coming even, as soon as, obviously, I'm sure every coach talks about it, there's nothing worse than the player lifting up the lane line and now you have to play again, or it's a penalty, right? But as soon as their head surfaces, right, they're yelling even. But even doesn't mean we just all go out, because now you might leave a post open. Also, when we arrive to being even, more times than not, one of these players is the center. So you always have to know what's going on behind you. So you go rushing out, they put a ball in, and here you go again. Now you're playing 5-on-6 again. So how we come even, how we release each other and communicate, and still, just like in our front court D, it goes back to front court defense, right? Ball player, man, area. You have to know what's going on behind you. You have to have great awareness. If we're not in a fronting position, you better be careful how far you go out, because you'll be playing 5-on-6 again. Then, we talk about a percentage. Really, if you can hold a team to 30% or less, ideally under 30, you're going to be in a good way. So, as far as, I believe, obviously I'm not going to get into the finer elements of blocking, but I can say this one thing on the women's side, where I said earlier, body position is even more crucial, because now you have a whole suit. Like, if you're on one of the X4 or X5 and you're in the vertical with you're not moving. It's like, whoa, and it's done. And I said earlier, everybody's hands are knives, right? I know this. If I'm back on the post like this, you can't really control me. You can try to hand fight. You might be able to capture my wrist, but I'm going to get out of it. But if I'm back all the way like this, there's a lot more. Now you have the ability to control me. Then 6-on-5, I finish what you started. It seems a lot of times when you get an extra man, a lot of times the energy starts to come down because you have an extra player. Whereas we always talk about energy, efficient game. If you take care of that 6-on-5, A, if you're tired, you could be subbed out, but B, there's going to be a pause. So finish what you started. Then some critical concepts, general concepts. Passing. You did all this work to earn an exclusion somewhere in your attack or in the counter, and you don't even get an opportunity to shoot because of your passing. You turn the ball over. From the first pass, I said today to the kids, passing, being a great passer can put you in a position to be in the game more, or put you in a position to make a team. And the reality is, we cannot afford to not get a shot off on 6-on-5. You're up a player. So our passing. Then, if the exclusion happens at 2 meters, right? Center's ready to make a good pass out and ready to step to the free water with a hand. Just putting in a hand up is going to pull the defense either back or you're going to be ready to go. Then, we must be ready to seize an advantage from the first second, the first moment of the attack all the way through the last. Look, if I could get the ball out in one pass and I can go 3-4 fakes at 4 meters, I'm ready to go. That's probably the best option. But we have to be in attack mode from the first moment all the way to the last. And the last meaning, we can keep going, even when they say even. There's still time when they're swimming in. Then we'll be clear with our communication and calling out whatever rotation you so desire, but everybody has to be on the same page. For example, if you go with one position 1 and 2, if one moves into the pocket, you can't have 2 also moving out. So clear communication of what the attack is. Then as far as the 6-on-5 standards, always in attack mode, everybody's got to be a shooter. Your job is to pull that immediate defender off their line, pull them out. And I'm not going to get into, if the ball comes to 6, my job is to pull X3. Obviously, I'm watching 2, 3. If it's not there, 5. How I time these movements. And again, I don't want to get into the tactical part, but like teams that drift, you're setting up an easier block for your opponent. Time coordinated movements. We did a drill today. How you climb from right to left. And how you time that could be the difference of, I know this. A great shot is 6 is taking it in. I climb here first ball. If he's pulled X3, for example, I got near side. Go. More passes, the more risk. If I can finish it here, let's go. So those are critical elements. Not only attack mode, but how you're doing coordinated and how you're climbing to your given position. So how you rotate. Post movement. There's nothing worse than posts that are really active. We all know that on 5-on-6. Posts who sit in the same position, it's easy. Post movement. Now look, for a given rotation, I'm sure every team coach, they have a post location. Sometimes though, you have to change your location. There's no reason if one was taking the ball and an X2's on 3, sitting here, why would I keep moving middle? Nope, I'm going to stay put because now maybe I'm opening room for the 2 posts, for example. But you have to move. By you moving, you're making these players make decisions. Should I go up? Should I stay down? Then, like I said, the intensity level must stay or go up. The bar must rise. Okay? Then the thing that kills me, I can pull video, right, where we get a great ball to the post. You think it's an easy goal, so you drop your intensity, and all of a sudden, now you hit, that should just be an easy slam dunk, you're hitting the bar, or you're throwing the ball over the goal. There's no easy goals in water polo. None. So how you finish should be the same always. Then we don't need to force one-on-one shots. You can always do that at the end. We knew with our national team, for example, we straightforward. In 2008, we never ran anything different besides 1 in or 6 in or 1 pocket or 6 pocket. If you attack those things the right way and you have the right coordinated movements, there's always a solution. And if we didn't, at the end, we could always ship the ball down to Tony, who can go one-on-one versus the block, or Peter here, for example, or whoever. But, okay, Tony was a great shooter versus the block. But he didn't have to do that early, because if we had the right movements and we pulled the defense, we could reverse the ball and always go inside and have a wide open slam dunk. So you don't need a lot of tricks, but you definitely don't need, per se, heroes that are going to try early to just beat the block or beat 2 blocks. There's no reason. Then what's the point of having an extra player? Because if you attack this the right way, you should be pulling. You're either pulling the defense out where you're going inside, or if the defense wants to stay back, or we suck them back, then we're stepping in from the outside. Then, remember, you have time even when they come even. A lot of teams, when they hear even, what do they start doing? Rushing out, and we can find the post. Or like I said, maybe you play it all the way out where they're even, but now we have our center again, and now we have another 6-on-5. The last thing I'll say is, it should never happen, but you see it happen a lot. You should never be countered off of your 6-on-5. There's no way. Absolutely not. That means either A, somebody got jumped, B, somebody shot a ball. Imagine on 6-on-5. If you're up faking and somebody arrives to you, now you've taken another player out of the equation, and you shoot the ball and you give a 1-on-nobody. You can't do it. You should never eat it. And oh, by the way, that's a pretty deflating moment to go from a man advantage or a player advantage, a 6-on-5 advantage, and eat a counter the other way, especially a first-line one. It can't happen. And the only way it happens is by the decision-making of the offense. If they take a player and go to offense, you play 5-on-4. Simple. So you can't have a counter out of your 6-on-5. So with that, my hope is, I know these are very, for the most part, basic elements. But again, I believe you don't need anything more than the simple fundamental movements, the simple decision making that you're giving your athletes. There doesn't need to be tricks. There's always time to call a timeout and have some sort of play. But if you play a high percentage, smart game, you're going to be in a position to have a chance to be successful. My hope is everybody was able to grab a couple different things from each phase of the game. I know Tony, I said if you have questions, you can contact 6-8. And my hope is that this was beneficial in some way for everyone. So thank you. There it is. Done. So we're going to just go over some video clips here about things that we had just covered from each phase of the game, just so you can see it with a little bit more context here. So I'm going to drag it to some different clips. We'll kind of go over it and then move on to the next one. This first clip, it's right after the sprint, okay? And we talked about how important it is establishing a front court attack. Establishing a front court attack means position 1 and 5 on the 2-meter line, center on the 2-meter line. And this is against the pressing defense. So right here we see position 5, for example. At least probably at 4.5, 5 meters. You don't even see the yellow line. So we're probably further out. Same with position 1 and our center stopping before the 5-meter line. That means position 2, 3, and 4, they're going to be out of the attack. So against the press here, it's really important we have movement. So with this, even if we were to play a ball into our center, more times than not, like we talked about, defender could be behind, put the hands up. What is our center going to do with the ball out here now closer to 6.5 meters? So we are absolutely in this situation not establishing a front court defense. We're letting the defense dictate how we play. I want to play on the 2-meter line, so I should, at this juncture, I should be swimming down to the 2-meter line. So at this juncture for the pressing team, it becomes easy. These players are at 12, almost 12.5, 12 meters. So now they have the ability to step back to our center, who now is at 6+ meters, 7 meters. And then I want you to look at what kind of pressure are we really putting on the goalie here. These players are so far out, he's in a comfortable state. He knows where the shot's going to come from at this point. So that's not a high percentage attack. And we're also setting up, if we don't establish our front court positions and have good balance, we're setting up their counter. They're closer to their objective, their goal. So right here, there's no advantage. We should be pressing. So there's no advantage. This ball should be under pressure. Stop. Stop. I'm used to telling my manager to stop it, so I'm on it. Anyways, there's no way. We should be in a press. We talked about in a press. That ball can't go from 2 to 4, and now they have their center immediately for a positive situation here. And this very well could be a penalty. So not establishing whether you're playing pressing. Look, if you're not down, then we should be pressing. Then also we know in a press, the ball has to go position by position. It shouldn't skip positions. The ball goes 2 to 4 and in. Again, that could have very easily been an exclusion and or a penalty. Then on the counter here, we talked about how you choose to swim down the pool, right? There's no first line advantage. But we also talk about those on the first line are creating situations for those behind them. first and foremost, making their life easier by taking your defender away from them. How we choose to swim down the pool is up to us. So we slow down where we stop. Again, position 1, not down on the 2-meter line. Center, again, stopping high. 4 meters at this juncture. Stop. Oh, sorry, I'm going to keep saying that. Then, front court balance. In this situation here, we have 3 players over here being guarded by 2. Right? And this player's on the center. Balance is everything. So at this juncture, because of our balance, we afford them the opportunity to guard 3 of our players with 2. Then, if we have good balance and they wanted to split, so this player should be over here at 4 and at 3. If they want to split, we're ready to go through, and we have a 2-on-1 situation down here. But now, we're completely letting our opponent dictate how we play, and we back up in this situation. So, to go back on that, because of our balance, we allowed this white team to split because of our balance. That's an easy decision for that team to make. And the reality is, if we have good balance, 4, 3, and 2, now he has to strongly consider, should I go that far or not? So we gave the ability to make an easy decision because of our structure. And then, oh. So, how we dump the ball. This player, and can I use the arrows to drag it back? Control with the arrow?
Yep.
Oh, shoot. So, the blue player here on offense was putting himself in a position where he was going to be countered. But he has the ability to change this position because he has the ball in his hand and he can dump it. He chose to dump the ball down here, which now the goalkeeper, or say there was another player, has the ability to sprint and take advantage of this. He could take this ball and dump it right here, and now the player that has the advantage on him has to do what? Go get the ball, and now he can recover and get into a safe position. Let me see here. 5:45. So a lot of these clips we're going to talk about transition. Again, how important it is establishing the first line all the way to 2 meters. So, for this whole first quarter, the blue team never had one strong front court attack. Based on, more times than not, 99% of the time, because of their transition. And what we see here, now this is the third front court. Position 5, you see the yellow line. So this was the 5-meter line last year. Not even close to the 2-meter line. Center, 5 meters and 1. We talked about earlier today, how you choose to go down the pool is up to you. These players, if we back up, let's see how many have their head down versus on their back. So there's absolutely, if you choose to swim the right way, there's no way these players could be cruising on their back. So this right here simply tells me the blue team, they're choosing not to swim as hard as they can down the pool. A, maybe because they don't have an advantage. This is the beginning of the game. And this is killing. You see, at the end of the day, A, they're not taking their defender, so you see how close our first line is to our second line. You see 1 player, 2 players, 3 players on their back, has vision, maybe the ability to slow down the second line. And then you see the end result based on where they stop on the first line at 5+ meters, how it is affecting our front court attack in a really negative way. So, because of our counter structure, this team, the attacking team, right, has a player at half which allows a stair-stepping situation, right? And now we're relying on an arm or a 5-meter foul to be the success of our front court attack. We have absolutely no sort of team attack here going. Position 5 now is at 7 meters. Again, we're putting our opponent closer to their objective, the goal, on the other side. So we said one of the goals and objectives of the front court is to create high percentage scoring opportunities, high percentage exclusion opportunities. We've yet to put ourselves in that position simply because of our transition. And we talked about how each phase can either have a positive and or negative effect on the next phase. And what we see here is, without a doubt, our counter or our transition offense has had a huge negative impact on our front court success. Then we talk about one of the most vulnerable periods in the game is from the transition of one phase to the next. So this next clip we're going to see is at the end of the counter, how we arrive and what kind of defensive positioning we're in. So, if you look over here at position 2, this player has been waiting in the vertical position instead of the horizontal. You know, we like to play in the horizontal with our legs this way so we can sculpt. I mean, everybody has different preferences, but you can't play in the vertical. So, what happens when you play in the vertical? A movement will cause a dramatic reaction by the defender more times than not, whether you give them your body or they take 2 strokes and you go jumping back the other way. So here we'll see that. In this movement, he took 2 strokes. He should still be sculling. There was no reason for that kind of movement. So, on the flip side, so now we see that the white team's balance afforded us, so we talk about one side closing, one side finishing. The ball's here at 3, position 2 starts swimming back to defense. That allowed us to stair step over and get a steal. So they afforded the blue team the opportunity to take advantage of poor structure. Okay, we're going to watch a 6-on-5 here. So we talked about, okay, this exclusion happened in the backcourt. But once we establish and get into our 6-on-5, from the first moment to the last moment, we must be in attack mode. Oh, hold on. The exclusion has not happened yet. Sorry, but it's going to happen here. So here we go. So first ball out's got to be safe. Right there. Ball from the center out. He should be immediately, this player is going out. He should be immediately attacking this player. The center should have their hand up and moving towards the ball. This player follows in behind, and this player should be all the way in here. One pass, it's done. Or two passes, excuse me. It's either one pass to here, he stays back, I'm ready to go. He jumps, he's moving, I pull him, we come in behind, second pass, done. But we didn't do this. We talked about center. Ball comes into the center, exclusion, safe pass out, moving to the free water with the hand. He steps here with the hand. I guarantee you this player comes, and we come in behind. There's no way any goalie in the world can stop that ball. Then, it's really important when we take this ball in either at 6 in or 1 in, we allow time for our post to move, for post movement. Also, when I take the ball in at 6 or 1, as I take the ball in, I'm up and provoking the goalie. Up, provoking the goalie, but also ball faking to the post. Because as I go up and I go like this, that's going to suck back X4 and X5, or my post player with a movement moving forward is going to be free. So as I climb inside the 2-meter line, I'm not just sitting with the ball down especially, it's up. I'm watching the goal, watching the post, allowing as I go inside the 2-meter line our post to make big movements. If it's not there, then I'm ready to play the ball. So here, this is, we absolutely, in this situation, the blue team absolutely did not provoke the defense to make decisions, to come out and or stay back. We just took a shot against the block. And the reality is, I believe if you can, unless you have a solution earlier, in this situation, the blue team's in one pocket, you want to try to get the ball all the way around to the pocket player and see how far we can pull the team to be ready to reverse the ball to the opposite side, so one pocket to 6, and see if we have some opening on the post, and then we can go again. So here the blue team absolutely did not provoke the defense from the beginning to the end. Uh-oh. So even here, as I come in, and it's so important on 6-on-5, you see all the time teams getting called for inside the 2-meter line. You have to be on the same line as the ball, or it's better to even delay a little bit. So then there's no decision by the referee. But then how this player takes it in hard might be the difference of catching this player or not. So, absolutely did not pull this player. Keep going. Bring this player. Play here. Do we have a 2-on-1 here? So this is just shooting to shoot. Okay, we're going to watch one more counter here. Hold on. So again, both teams at this juncture have not done a good job with their counter structure at all. Stopping early, not establishing deep right, left, and center, which has led to, the first front court for the white team, they got down to a pretty good structure, which was a ball from 2 to 4 and in that could have been a penalty. So you see the difference between a good structure or a decent structure and these, poor structures and the effects it have on the front court attack. So again, blue team not transitioning and getting back from the press to the zone, playing in between, so not even pressing and not even in a zone. So 5-on-6 here. So, from an offensive standpoint, this player could have kept stepping to the free water, but even here you see this ability by him having his hand ready and towards the ball. And I don't know if this is a goal or not. I think it might be. But from a defensive standpoint, ball was here. This player already at X5 was in the vertical position. This player's already in the vertical position. Then the ball goes from 6 to 5 to 4. No sort of urgency. X3 should be back on the post. Still, ball leaves 6's hand to 5. You have a block, but the ball leaves 5's hand. You should now be back on the post. If the post was way over here, of course you're not going to go out of your area. But no, absolutely no effort by X3 here to come back and control the post. We should have, at this juncture, with the ball at one pocket, 2 players controlling the post. It's a game of inches. They choose not to come back. There's nothing. Goalie's concentrated here, ball here. There's nothing our goalie can do in this situation. So looking at the center position here, really important you see here with this. The center's first move here is down and back, which affords the defender the opportunity to come up and tip a ball. If this center stays up, let me pull it back here. Oh. So, if this center's first move, if that player wants to come up, he's got to hit and seal this player and go towards the ball. It can't be down and head down. Now, if I seal, there's no way that arm behind me should be further than my arm. But this center in this position, head goes down, they go down. That's their first movement, and the defender's able to tip the ball. Trying to get it so you can see it. Okay, the next one, you know, our objective off the counter, if we can, on defense is to be in a pressing position. So right here, this player has help to have an opportunity to come around and get into a fronting position. Now immediately, he chooses to stay behind. The window of opportunity is gone. And immediately now, they have an opportunity for an early ball, and or even if the defense reacts quickly enough, we're put into a zone for the better part of our front court defense. We want to try to establishing a fronting position at the end of the counter. And in this case, we had an extra player there to help. So this is a counter versus a press. So in this situation, right, our first line, we got to establish it, but the ball's under pressure here. We said against the press, no long passes. This player should be on his way to help this. And imagine, so there's one defender. If we go get this ball, we pull this defender. The next person comes, we pull this defender. We're creating a nice isolation for our center, depending on what side they're on. And we said, against the press, you can't sit. They want to grab. You have to move. And again, here we go again. Our balance, our structure is affording them to have a player in between. So we talked about this too. So teams, we said in our front court, even with this poor structure, we got this to a one-on-one situation. Teams at the end of a clock, or if a player is attacking the goal the right way. Right here, we have the center wide open. A ball in here to the center is going to have an exclusion. He did his job. He got the zone defender to come out, ball in here, and we're in business. Also, whoever has the ball in their hand is in control of the game. Are they seeing this situation? They shoot here, and now there's a big opportunity for a counterattack going the other way. Another front court where we're out of balance. So right here, we talk about balance and structure. One side attacking, right? And I don't know if this is the end of the clock, but position 5 is already rotating up to the 5-meter line. We have to be down here. Have to be. This whole time, the blue team who's attacking here, we really have never put this goalie under real pressure. Always balls from far, from distance, I should say, and always with the block in the front, in front of them, and or a person swimming towards them, based on the structure. We're going to look at a shot block here. Or lack thereof. So how we go out, how we hold the block, how we arrive in a block. So many times when a person's arriving to a player, they lower their block. And the end result, let me pull it back. Classic mistake in water polo, when you go out in a block and you're arriving, you let your block come down and they shoot over. Instead of blocking arm should stay up, other hand should be arriving center of the chest. But instead, like this, and now they're shooting over the block. Couple more here, Sean. We're going to look at a 6-on-5, 5-on-6. So from the first moment, this ball comes from here to here. He has free water. He should be going forward. Maybe it's your best solution. Then, ball over here at 6 pocket. All the difference in the world for a post player. As they move here to the free water, if they have their hand up, this will change the decision making a lot of times of the defense. They'll keep going. You have to be in a ready position always. So we should be here. This player's moving here. I'm ready to move here, over here. These players are being pulled this way. I have to always be ready to step into the free water. So this goal is just a player climbing up and shooting the ball and beating a block. That was nothing created by the coordinated movements, the post moving the right way, outside players stepping into the free water. And you saw here the ball comes to this player. The player puts the ball down in the water, climbs up, and throws it as hard as he can. That's not a high-quality percentage shot on a 6-on-5. All right. Let's look at 1302. So again, not great structure, center on 5 meters. Here again. So a couple things here. Okay, again, it's tough because the balance here has not been good, but we talked about, so it seems like it's coming to the end of the clock. This player here is putting himself in a dangerous position for a counter. Also watching the pass. Stop, right? So here, okay, I didn't realize. So ball goes here, ball goes back. Now we know the clock's down. Watching, right? In this situation, they get lucky, the blue team, because the ball goes in, they call an exclusion. But this absolutely here, if that ball turns over, this could be a one on nobody. So putting yourself in a safe position. It's the classic mistake in water polo, whether it's a pass or a shot. I pass or I shoot and I go down and I rest for a second. I got to catch my legs and I got to back up and get to a safe position. Now, the white team made a mistake. One side closing. This player from position 5, I mean, already going back to defense, this player should have been on top of the center. So, again, one side finishing, one side closing. White team had an opportunity to double up at the center position. Okay, a one pocket situation here. Again, 1 or 6 when they take the ball in, provoking the goalie and faking to the post. Post players ready to step with the hand up to the free water. So this was the first time this whole 6-on-5 where he did an okay job attacking, where we got a player to commit. Every other player's just held their ground, held their block. So that means the blue team is not attacking in an aggressive manner. They're not pulling their given defender off either their responsibility or their line. They're not bringing them out. So again, this goal here, similar to the other one, this is created by a nice shot beating the block. And you go back, so you see this defender here at X3. We talked about head and body following the ball. Just watch what happens when the ball goes from one pocket to 6. Turns the complete opposite way. Now his block is delayed. There was a catch and shoot opportunity there, but he went the complete opposite way when he had to just go like this. Now maybe his legs, they're not in the proper position, and he's late and delayed getting a block up. Simply head and body not following the ball. We'll watch one more here, front court defense. So this is the stuff that I'm always watching for with our players. So for us, fundamentals, body position is everything. So we're going to watch position 2 here. So coming off the after goal. Right here, drop to the vertical position. He should be with his legs up and on an angle the way we play here. What the vertical position, I said this earlier, if this player steps back, it incites a big movement, which could give them leverage. Also, if they swim forward on a drive, you're immediately swimming. If we can skull the whole way and have vision of everything, why wouldn't we skull? At some point, okay, you're going to have to turn and go. So vertical position is really, it can change the complexion immediately of your whole defense because you're going to get beat. Ball's going to reverse, for example, or you're beat on a drive. And there we go. Ball reverses. And again, the blue team not figuring out that fine line. There was no reason. Ball's here at 4. We're fronting here. We should be committed to a press. But we're also not back. And now at this juncture, you're going to be stuck in a one-person zone. These players now at this juncture should be sprinting back. This player was also in the vertical position at X3. So, classic mistake, right? And depending, tactically this team, when a right-handed driver went 3 to 5, that can afford X3 to hang out in front of the center and force the ball down to 5, right? But then this player at X5, he chooses to jump out at a right-hander at position 5, leaving this player closer to the goal. Even if it was a left-hander, he should stay back. This player is posting up at this juncture. It's a game of inches. He jumps out, ball goes inside. Difference of the game, potentially the difference of your season. So going backwards to those little fundamental things that we talked about or standards, it's really simplifying the game. And it really becomes a positional game. It's a leverage game. It's a game of inches. And, if you overcommit, then you're leaving open the window of opportunity for somebody to have a positive action like we've seen here. If you're not in the proactive body position, you're leaving your opponent to have a positive action, whether they can grab you or push you, whether it's 6-on-5, counterattack. If you're swimming side by side, they can grab you. So those little elements you can see as you go through your own video, those little simple things that we believe are so simple are the difference maker in the games of water polo. So again, thank you. And hopefully you found some benefit and some correlation to the things that we were discussing earlier with what we just went over with a few video clips here.